A Tale of Two Cities, or A Tale of Male Disposability. Charles Dickens is generally regarded as one of the best Anglophone writers of his time. He authored many works, which to this day are regarded as classics, among them The Adventures of Oliver Twist, A Christmas Carol, and the partial subject of this video, A Tale of Two Cities. I have neither the time nor the inclination to go into the many specific historical details of the novel, because they are not particularly relevant to the discussion at hand. However, to those not familiar with the book, it takes place in the times just prior to the French Revolution, and whilst focusing on several characters, the core of the plot revolves around three characters in particular: Sidney Carton, Lucy Manette, Charles Darnay, and these are the characters pertinent to this discussion. At the center of the novel, and the driving force behind the story, is the deified Lucy Manette, described as nigh perfect in virtually every respect, from her behavior to her appearance. And this is a literary and cultural meme that can be encountered throughout much of what is regarded as canonical literature. This meme can be seen in works such as Dante's Divine Comedy, or in Homer's Iliad as well, and this is the aspect of the novel that deserves our attention, namely the concept of the divine and infallible female, and the ensuing dominance hierarchy-based competition between the novel's two male protagonists, Sidney Carton and Charles Darnay, both of whom vie for her hand. Sidney is portrayed as a disheveled and alcoholic barrister from England, and Charles as a handsome and courageous French nobleman. The relevant plot device is that these two men are physically nigh identical in appearance, barring Carton's unkemptness. Lucy, the divine female, invariably favors Charles over Sidney, and much of the novel revolves around Sidney's pining away for the infallible Lucy. And whilst there is much history and detail given to that history, it is this aspect of the novel on which we must focus, and for this reason I will fast forward to the end of the book. Sidney Carton decides to replace the French noble Darnay during the height of the French Revolution, who is going to be executed, putting himself in the queue for the guillotine. He does this, of course, because he loves Lucy, who does not return his love, and his closing remarks are none other than, "It is a far, far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known." Let me repeat that. In self-sacrifice, he says, "It is a far, far better thing that I do than I have ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than I have ever known," quote unquote. Implying that willingly going to his death for the sake of a woman who does not give a rat's ass about him is the best, most noble thing he could do, and has ever done, and that the oblivion of nothingness will be adequate recompense for his self-sacrifice. This is the problem with male disposability. But it is not merely an issue of female and societal perception of the male, but one of the male's self-perception, because the fact that his self-sacrifice for someone who does not care about him at all is regarded as the best possible thing by Sidney himself, by the man, is a testament to how deep the problem goes with male disposability. It is an issue ingrained in the minds of all, both male and female, an issue where self-abasement reaches untold depths given the appropriate female stimulus to bring about that self-abasement. And this ties into the core issue that has of late been discussed in great detail by many, namely, what is the value of man? And is that value one that can only be derived either negatively or positively from the female? If we were to believe in the selling point of the Tale of Two Cities, then the answer is a resounding and positive yes. If we are to believe current social norms and expectations, and the media as well as the majority of men themselves, never mind women, then the answer is yet again a resounding yes. And yet, there are those amongst us who believe that there is something acutely wrong with the picture, and believe that a man should not be disposable at all. At all. There also seems to be some variation of this argument, or of this trend, mostly from traditionalists, and those who ascribe to men the sole identity of father and propagator of DNA, and that men should, given modernity, be somewhat less disposable, but that is indeed their proper role nonetheless. It has been argued that male disposability, which is a product of male dominance hierarchy competition, is in fact a double-edged sword, bringing greatness to some and ruination to others, and that this dynamic should be kept intact, A, because it is natural, a point I shall come to later, and B, because it allegedly brings out the best in men. This best in men is then cited as those men who have become great leaders, generals, and others that are regarded highly. But upon closer examination, we can see just how fallacious this claim is by looking at what was one of history's greatest alpha males, who succeeded in dominance hierarchy competition on a scale undreamt of by most men. We know this because approximately 8% of the Asian population carries this man's DNA. This man was none other than Genghis Khan. He is the epitome of the successful alpha male, and we have enough in the way of documentation to have a close look at what made him this so-called alpha male. The Mongol Empire was one of short duration, though the largest ever to be known in the history of man. As all empires, it was carved out by brute force conquest, as well as death and destruction. These are the alpha male's primitive tools. To get a better idea of what Genghis Khan's alpha maledom entailed, we can look at the report of a contemporaneous chronicler of the time, Giovanni de Plano Carpini, a papal envoy in Kiev and Rus, in the year 1246. He writes, "They (brackets the Mongols) attacked Rus, where they made great havoc, destroying the cities and fortresses and slaughtering men. And they laid siege to Kiev, the capital of Rus. After they had besieged the city for a long time, they took it and put the inhabitants to death. When we were journeying through that land, we came across countless skulls and bones of dead men lying about on the ground. Kiev had been a very large and thickly populated town, but now it has been reduced to almost nothing. There are at the present time scarce 200 houses there, and the inhabitants are kept in complete slavery." The death toll estimate lies between 30 million and 60 million as a result of the Mongol conquest. And some of the events that took place under the command of Genghis Khan are placed amongst the bloodiest massacres in recorded human history. This all has a context and an origin, the latter being innate dominance hierarchy competition strivings, and the former being the actualization of those strivings. In essence, a Genghis Khan is none other than the brute supreme, the prototypical alpha male, and one for which even the modern female seems to have a preference, curiously enough. This is, quote, "the natural order of things," quote. Now, we in modernity look back at the Mongol conquest and shudder. Few of us would condemn anything of what took place back then, yet the seeds of the violence that took place during that time, and indeed in a large number of conflicts throughout history, lay in the biological drive to pursue violent competition, with man pitted against man, the so-called natural order of things, as some call it. Some 1,000 or so years later, we have not changed as a collective. Indeed, this has always been the way of things. The pinnacle of human, specifically male achievement, has always lain in reproducing as many offspring as possible. This was and has often been achieved by means of violence against other men. In stark contrast, we have the decidedly more timid achievements of men such as Nikola Tesla, Leonardo da Vinci, Leibniz, Newton, and others of like mind. None of their achievements lay in violent conquest. In contrast to a Genghis Khan, these men sought to unravel the mysteries of the universe by using their mind. Mental conquest, if you will. And they acquired little in the way of material resources that are typically required for successful dominance hierarchy competition. Many of these men were likely asexual, or at the very least, rather disinterested in women, and seeing them as a distraction. What drove them was not a desire to propagate their DNA, but something else entirely. They sought to understand the world and the universe itself, something beyond the ken of a Genghis Khan. Something else entirely different must have been at work in their minds. For one thing, it is clear based on their curriculum vitae that they had very little interest in relations with women. Most did not acquire great sums of material wealth, nor did they show a primary interest in wealth acquisition. And even with an Einstein, who was married, DNA propagation took a distant second to his intellectual pursuits and its relentless drive to understand the world. And thus we have a clear division in the area of achievement. On the one hand, we have strivings and effort put towards achievement in the realm of material wealth in the form of money, real estate, and other material resources, and on the other hand, cerebral achievement, which can lead to those things, but cannot be directly correlated with them. Furthermore, it is clear that the former is a consequence of dominance hierarchy competition for the sake of female reproductive resources, and the latter is an activity unto itself, done for itself by inquisitive minds. And whilst we all need a minimal in material wealth, it has always been inquisitive minds of the like I have mentioned that have truly altered the world. Empires brought about through violence and violent male-on-male competition are a dime a dozen, as is their collapse. But truly revolutionary scientific ideas can change the very face of what it means to be human and transform society on a permanent scale. What then is worthier pursuit? Shall men continue to flounder in lockstep competition with each other for the attention of females who care not a whit about them, wasting and spending money as well as mental and emotional energy on an investment with a near negative chance of return, just so they can say someone has their DNA? Or should men take a different route? The fact that there have been and continue to be men who have chosen a route other than violent dominance hierarchy competition is a clear indication that the route is potentially open to all men. Let me make the final point, and my personal opinion, that dominance hierarchy competition has been practiced for untold millennia for the sake of female attention is unhealthy, unproductive, and as can be evidenced by the epitome of the so-called alpha male, the winner of winners, Genghis Khan himself, it is dangerous and immoral. And this leads to the next point, which is that just because something is natural does not mean it is good. Behavior derived from natural instincts and drives needn't be good either. We see this with male-on-male competition, but we also see this in a recurrent phenomenon whereby people use our understanding of evolution and biology to justify certain forms of argumentation. So rather than using these scientific tools to understand and reject what is bad, it is argued that because it is natural, it is good, and this is applied across the board. For example, some have advocated for natural procreation whilst voicing opposition to futuristic ideas about artificial womb technology. But what in fact does that entail? The assumption is that only standard male-female copulation is acceptable, but there are other elements to quote-unquote natural procreation that the umbrella term should include. And before I proceed with this, I will offer the rather obvious disclaimer that I do not support or endorse rape in any way, shape, or form, and see it as a deprivation of the autonomy of the individual. With that said, rape has historically and prehistorically been a natural vehicle of procreation in humans and primates for millions of years, and has only dwindled in Homo sapiens with the advent of modern ethics. But the Genghis Khans of the world, the alpha male primitives, as well as their henchmen, made regular use of this as a means of natural procreation. Our primate cousins are no different. Orangutans regularly make use of rape in order to spread their seed as well. This is all natural procreation, and yet we reject it because we have developed a sense of ethics and morality that outweighs adhering to archaic, quote-unquote, naturalistic principles. This is the fallacy of arguing along the lines of the natural simultaneously being good. It does not always work, and this is a further reason why male-on-male dominance hierarchy competition ought to be flat-out rejected by men, as we have been clubbing each other to death for long enough. Maybe it is time to start working together in friendship and beneficial cooperation as opposed to hostile competition for women's sake. Aren't we far enough along the timeline that we can overcome our baser instincts? That's the question. Biological determinism need not equal fatalism. We really need to stress that. Biological determinism need not equal fatalism. Men can look to the Teslas and Newtons of the world and history for a different model of behavior that will yield far greater results for themselves as well as humanity. They show that the alleged vacuum that exists when men do not compete with each other for females is no vacuum at all, but an opportunity to do something far greater. At the same time, a male's personal wealth and resources can be retained for himself without wasting them on a group of people who see him only in those terms, namely as a utility. Finally, if we truly wish to earn the title of human in its transcendent sense, we cannot continue to adhere to practices fit only for animals, and yet the majority of men seems only concerned with just that, copulation and DNA propagation. And all the complexities of modern human society notwithstanding, these men seem to me, and I'm sorry to say it, little different than the dog chasing the bitch in heat. We must move beyond that, but we can only do that if we recognize that natural does not always mean good, and that just because we have always done something in a certain way does not mean it is the best way. or even a good way. The path ahead might well be unknown, but at the very least it is open to completely new ideas and strategies, whereas the path behind us is completely known and more akin to instinctual slavery than anything else. We most definitely need a new path. Thanks for watching.